you may need to move to deeper technical analysis. If you're looking at tools, vulnerabilities, and techniques used in the attack, there may, and it's discovered that the tools and techniques were not previously known, there may be more detailed analysis required. If it's a vulnerability that was not known, there may be vulnerability analysis that has to occur. That if you have a vulnerability analysis group within your organization, you may pass it to them for that analysis. If not, you may pass it to an external security expert or organization to do that. You may want to look at how the system configuration data was changed or altered. You may want to look at what the attacker had. Did he escalate or his or her privileges, and what did they do with those privileges? If the attacks were not contained, what are you continuing to see? What type of system changes are you seeing? Is there any related network activity that you're seeing? What indicators of compromise are you able to identify? And what relationship does this incident have to any others that are currently happening or that happened in some previous time? So those are still more additional questions to ask. But as far as the technical analysis, sometimes to actually understand how system configuration data was changed or how an attacker escalated privileges, you may need to do more digital media analysis or malware analysis if there was a piece of malware code involved. We also talked about the fact that you have to think about the business impact and how it affects the organization's mission, and that can include functional impact. So are there operations that are not ongoing because this malicious activity has taken out key services? Is there information impact? Have confidential information or sensitive information or personal information been exposed or released in an unauthorized fashion? We have to also think about, is there any recovery time? The systems have to come down to be rebuilt. If there were malware installed at the privileged level, or if there were other privileged activities, if someone got privileged access to a system, and how long will that recovery time be, and then how does that tie into any functional impact? And then also, what type of resources are going to be required throughout the organization to implement any type of response, and what will that involve, which groups, and how will that impact other operations too. So some of this information and some of these considerations about business impact have been documented in the NIST Special Publication 861 Revision 2. So if you want to see more about that and how they suggest dealing with business impact, you can take a look at that document. Once we've have some ideas and have researched any known countermeasures, patches, or workarounds, we continue with our data analysis. And again, we know that we may not have all the information that we need, but also we have to worry that we may have some misleading information. We may have something that looks like it's a root cause and it turns out to be a red herring. I remember one team talking about a report that came in that there was suspicious and abnormal traffic, a lot of it on the network. They weren't sure what was happening, but it was causing slowdowns on the network operations. And so they're trying to understand if there had been some compromise, if there were any botnets that had been installed that were using system resources. And eventually it was traced back to a printer that had been installed and misconfigured, was configured incorrectly, and it was broadcasting out at a very high rate and was actually impacting the network. But originally they thought it was some type of malicious activity, but really it was just a configuration error that caused the problem. So we have to be on guard that we're not being misled, where there might be just problems with the way software is installed or user errors that could be causing activity that initially seems suspicious, but in the long run turns out to not be malicious at all. Once we have additional data, once we've gotten results back from the more in-depth technical analysis that may have been done by malware analysts, digital media analysts, vulnerability analysts, depending on, again, what was the nature of the incident, what type of evidence was collected, what type of questions need to be done. Once you get that, feed it into your inventory of information, revisit the initial course of action that you've determined, and see if it needs to be changed at all. Remember to add it into any timeline that you have developed, and remember, because that more technical analysis is probably going to give you more insight into what steps were actually taken, what was changed on a system, or even how an intruder was able to access particular systems or resources. So adding that to your visualization and also documenting the results of all those analysis in your incident tracking system. So revisit that course of action, change it as appropriate, and continue to do your remediation analysis. What do I need to do to fix or resolve this problem? If there's not a fix, is there a workaround? Is there some other way that I can protect or mitigate these assets from any continuing impact? It's important, as we've mentioned, to ensure that you are documenting the information as it's being collected, as you're actually finishing your different analysis functions, making sure that that information is given to the right people, and also that it's included in your incident tracking system. You might need to think about how and where you're documenting that information, and is there any issues related to legal discoverability? So if this is how the information has been analyzed, the results of that, would that ever be required to be presented in a court of law if the perpetrator was being prosecuted? Also, do you need to report the information that you've found to others, and who are those others? According to your communication plan, hopefully you have a communication plan that's related to your incident management plan. And really identifying in that plan who the audience is and what the purpose of any type of communication is. Certainly internally, there may be reports and briefings that need to go to senior management about the resolution of incidents. If you have a constituency that you're serving, that you're the incident management function for, and they have been experiencing the malicious activity, getting information out that explains what's been going on and what remediation steps that they need to take, that can also be part of any type of reporting considerations of any analysis results. So again, thinking about how you might pass on that analysis. If the analysis, if you come up with a particular mitigation or resolution, who are you going to tell? How big is that audience? Is there anything that you need to publish? And if so, publish in the public venue. What type of media will you use? How does that work with your media relations policy? So there are a lot of decisions to take into account any of the analysis of the analysis results. Very often with coordination centers, if they're doing an analysis of how an incident occurred, there may be an advisory that they're publishing to their constituency. It could be internal constituency. It could be an external constituency. So having those known methods for releasing information, having the criteria defined ahead of time, and knowing what type of reports to release and what type of information goes to who is an important preparation step to do before or to help you facilitate any analysis, documentation, and reporting.